Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the Monday, February 10th business meeting of the Cabarrus County Board of Education. Before we proceed, I'd like to recognize Claudette Tart from Harris Road Middle School, the SRO at Harris Road Middle. Thank you for being here. We certainly do appreciate you being here. The opening ceremony, the presentation of colors, will be performed by the Air Force Junior ROTC cadets from Central Cabarrus High School. Presenting the colors tonight will be Cadet Second Lieutenant Savon Lane, Cadet Second Lieutenant Christian Leanhoutz, Cadet Major Donald Drake, Cadet Staff Sergeant Cortez Steele. Will you please rise?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, cadets. And that wonderful rendition of the Star Spangled Banner was performed by Julia Connolly from J.M. Robinson High School. And Julia is now out in the hallway, but thank you very much. Let's give her another hand. Okay, board members, we'll move on, and I need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. I have a motion, and I need a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the agenda has been adopted, and we will move on to the recognitions portion of our meeting, 4.1, and we'll ask Ms. Ronnie Boone to come to the podium.
Good evening. Tonight for our Impact Through Education Awards, we will recognize students and staff members from Coltrane Webb Elementary School and Mount Pleasant High School. We'll begin with Coltrane Webb Elementary, and I'd like to invite any members of the Coltrane Webb Elementary administrative team to come forward to stand with their students and staff. And before we get started, I also want to give a thank you to our sponsor for the Impact Through Education Awards, Concord Printing. So we want to thank our friends at Concord Printing for making these awards possible. Our first honoree from Coltrane Webb this evening is Aaron Eichert. Would Aaron and his family please come forward? Go up to the front, stand on the tape. Aaron is a fourth grader at Coltrane Webb Elementary STEM Magnet School. His teachers describe him as a model student and a great citizen. Aaron is always ready to help others in any capacity required, from academics to organization, even cleaning up others' desks to help them move along. He has even chosen to give up his recess time to tutor his friends. Aaron also participates and represents Coltrane Webb in district competitions such as Science Olympiad. Coltrane Webb is proud to call Aaron a STEM Cougar. Congratulations, Aaron. You are an Impact Through Education Award winner for Coltrane Webb Elementary School. Mom, Dad, big brother too. Our next Coltrane Webb honoree is Claire Sexton. Would Claire and her family please come forward? Claire is a fifth grader at Coltrane Webb Elementary STEM Magnet. Her teachers describe her as an all-around great student. She excels in all areas, but is humble enough to acknowledge her weaknesses and to work on them. Claire is always willing to help or tutor her peers in order to help them be successful. She is a model student for others in the areas of responsibility, respect, and safety. She currently serves as a school safety patrol officer and represents the school in competitions like Science Olympiad. Coltrane Webb is proud to have Claire as a member of its STEM Cougar family. Congratulations, Claire. You are an Impact Through Education Award winner for Coltrane Webb Elementary School. Our next honoree from Coltrane Webb Elementary is Mrs. Minette Finney Lewis, and I know that Ms. Finney Lewis could not be here this evening. She is actually in Raleigh attending the Emerging Issues Forum, but I would like to read her bio and make sure that she gets her award. So if you'll indulge me for just a few minutes. Mrs. Minette Finney Lewis is a fourth grade teacher at Coltrane Webb Elementary STEM Magnet. She was named the 2012-2013 Colchin Webb Teacher of the Year by her colleagues, who say she truly loves each and every child she teaches. Hers is a tough, fair love that she delivers with warmth and humor. She's a demanding, knowledgeable teacher who practices the skills she teaches, all while she's pursuing another degree. Mrs. Finney Lewis's colleagues are proud to work with her, and we congratulate her on being named an Impact Through Education Award recipient. I got one more. That's okay. And our final honoree from Colchin Webb is Ms. Gwen Jackson. Would Ms. Jackson and her family please come forward? You're going to have to squeeze in tight so everybody can get in the picture. There you go. Gwen Jackson is a teacher assistant at Colchin Webb Elementary STEM Magnet who has been with the system for nearly 10 years. Her colleagues say Ms. Jackson is always so willing to do anything required to enhance any student's learning. She teaches small groups, does one-on-one instruction, drives the bus on field trips, and is generally aware and concerned for the whole child. Most of all, she supports any teacher in need, whether that teacher is assigned to her or not. She is a very active member of the Teacher Assistant Association and represents Colchin Webb well at district meetings. And all that she does it with a smile. Congratulations, Ms. Jackson, and thank you for making an impact through education at Colchin Webb Elementary. That's great.
Ronnie, before you move on to Mount Pleasant, I wanted to tell everybody that's standing in the back, there are seats available in the front if you'd like to come sit down.
Now we will begin recognizing our students and staff members from Mount Pleasant High School. I'd like to invite any members of that school's administrative team to please come forward at this time. Our first honoree from Mount Pleasant High School is Chase Newmeyer. Would Chase and his family please come forward? Chase is a 10th grader at Mount Pleasant High School. His impact at the school is far-reaching and quite varied. As sophomore class president, Chase organizes his class meetings, coordinates fundraising and community service projects. He keeps fellow students informed through tweets, the Student Council website, and the Tiger Weekly newsletter, all of which he helped to create and develop, as well as design the logos and graphics for them. As a Youth Commission International leader, he runs the YCI CELI text reminders for all events, leads devotions, organized a Teens for Genes drive, and initiated a male Bible study group called I Am Second. He has made himself invaluable to the school's theater program, where he creates and updates the logo, program graphics, website, Twitter account, created new advertising formats, and is in charge of the lights, sound, and effects for all theater productions. Chase spends a great deal of time at school, and if he's not working on something of his own, he's probably helping a teacher hook up computers, carry boxes, or move desks. And by the way, did we mention he's an A student? Thank you, Chase, for the tremendous impact you have had at Mount Pleasant High School. Congratulations. Our next Mount Pleasant honoree is Allie Schooneman. Would Allie and her family please come forward? Allie is a 12th grader at Mount Pleasant High School and represents so much of what we hope all students could be. She is involved in a wide range of activities inside and outside of school. She tutors other students, is a manager of the volleyball team, Beta Club president, softball team captain, and youth leader at Mount Pleasant United Methodist Church. She belongs to the Interact Club, National Technical Honor Society, Science Club, Youth Commission International, has played basketball and softball, and took third place in the Skills USA Technical Drafting Regional Competition, advancing to the state level. Her involvement in community service includes 3 mission trips to Honduras, collecting and loading boxes for the Mount Pleasant Food Ministry, cleaning playgrounds, providing transportation for kids to church, construction projects, and blood drives. Her teachers describe her as a student who loves learning, and although she doesn't work for the grade, she has attained a 4.75 weighted GPA. They say she is led by a high moral compass, and we are so glad to recognize her for the impact she has made on Mount Pleasant High School. Congratulations. Our next honoree from Mount Pleasant High School is Ms. Courtney Nyborg. Would Ms. Nyborg and her family please come forward? Ms. Nyborg is the high school success teacher at Mount Pleasant High School. She has been at Mount Pleasant since 2007 and started as an English teacher until the call to teach at-risk ninth graders attracted her to the high school success program and classroom. Her influence in assisting those students help those students earn not only their English 1 credit, but gain higher confidence and an improved academic outlook has been extremely positive. Her impact school-wide, however, has come about as a result of her leadership in the school's response to instruction initiative and her willingness to be trained and to provide training for teachers. She has led professional development sessions for the faculty as a group and for any individual who seeks assistance. Forgive the pun, and I did not write this. but she has literally grown into the leadership role. I promise you, I did not write this. And I didn't get it until just now. In spite of all the fun she has teaching and training teachers, she would probably agree that she has the most fun coaching the school's golf team. Thank you, Ms. Nyborg, for the impact you have had on the students and the faculty of Mount Pleasant High School. Congratulations. And our final honoree from Mount Pleasant High School is Ms. Karen Rollins. Would Ms. Rollins and her family please come forward? Karen Rollins is the treasurer at Mount Pleasant High School. Mrs. Rollins has been at Mount Pleasant since 2004 when she started as the Sims operator. She soon moved into the treasurer position and has been keeping the school's books and its teachers straight ever since. Most people do not appreciate the job of the treasurer until they forget to sign in or out on timekeeper, need to be out a day and need a substitute, need to collect money and realize they have forgotten how to write and document a receipt, where to find their leave balances, or who they can order supplies from. The way the staff feels about Mrs. Rollins and the job that she does can be summed up in an email that was sent to her by a staff member. The email read, "Mrs. Rollins, you are awesome. I wish I got more of a chance to tell you how much I appreciate all that you do, but our days get so busy and there never seems to be any time to do that. You are such a comforting, steady presence here every day. Thank you for all that you do so patiently and gently, even when you are overwhelmed with your own workload. You are a great role model for all of us. Mrs. Saywich needs to give you a raise." I didn't write it. Thank you, Mrs. Rollins, for taking such good care of everyone at Mount Pleasant High School and for the impact that you make every day. Congratulations.
Okay, before we move on, there was one other thing I wanted to make mention of Mount Pleasant High School, and we have something new this year. We've got a student that wanted to intern with one of our board members, and Hunter Moore, who's here, stand up. He is going to intern with Ms. Carpenter and attend board meetings and attend some of the. We all serve as liaisons out in the community in various organizations and groups, and he's going to attend some meetings with Ms. Carpenter, and I think that's just a really neat thing and something that you wanted to do. So we just wanted to recognize you and welcome you, and you got a great front row seat there. We'll try not to ask you too many hard questions while you're sitting there in the front. So, and Carolyn, would you like to say something?
Yes, I would. He has hit the ground running. Edie, you can be so proud of him. He has already attended a budget meeting. He has already Trigo training. This is his second board meeting. I think you can be so proud of him. And this week alone, he will be earning his Eagle Scout. So he is an outstanding individual and so eager to learn. I think I'm fortunate to be working with him. He is wanting to get into political science, and his list goes on of what he's wanting to do. And so I'm fortunate, I think, to be working with him. He is such a interested young man, and I know he's going to go far. So we're going to be, he's wanting to sit in on the MPO and some of the other meetings. So he's going to be with us the remainder of the year. And thank you, Eddie, for working with him to let him do these things.
Yeah, fantastic. We are looking forward to that. And thank you, Carolyn. We will move on to 4.2. And Dr. Shepard will go to the podium with Kathy Auger. I'm sorry, and Mr. Tim Vaughn. Thank you for being here, Mr. Vaughn.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. It is my pleasure to present our Hilbish Ford Teacher of the Month. As always, we extend our thanks and gratitude to Mr. Tim Vaughn and Hilbish Ford for their generosity. It's wonderful to recognize an outstanding teacher in our district each month. The February Cabarrus County Schools Hilbish Ford Teacher of the Month is Andrea Nelson. Ms. Nelson, would you, your family, and any members of your school's administrative team please come forward? And anyone else you'd like to bring with you.
On, the more the merrier. Let's go. I can fit you in. It's in the front. There we go. There we go.
Andrea Nelson is a preschool teacher at the Mary Frances Wall Center, and I'm pleased to announce that she's the first teacher from the Wall Center selected for this award. Ms. Nelson was nominated for this award by a teacher who wrote, "My child has had the gift of being enrolled in Ms. Nelson's 4-year-old class at Mary Frances Wall Center this year. Ms. Nelson is extraordinary. She develops projects based on her students' interests, and my son is excited to tell me what he's done each day." The parent continued, "I'm able to engage him in great conversation because every day parents get an email from Ms. Nelson detailing the day and giving us a question to ask our child about the day. This is just one example of the way she goes above and beyond. More than anything, it's clear to me that she cares about her students greatly and will do whatever it takes to encourage them and help them to be great young people." So, Ms. Nelson, on behalf of the Cabarrus County Schools, please accept our thanks for all you do to help our youngest students grow and learn. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again to Tim Vaughn and Hilbish Ford. We certainly do appreciate it. Next, we'll go to 4.3, and we'll ask Ms. Ann Burr to come to the podium for our national honors for Cabarrus County Schools band students.
Absolutely. Good evening. Tonight we will be recognizing students that had demonstrated excellence in performing arts on a national level. Our first student is Samantha Barrier. I'd like to invite Samantha, Mr. Chris White, any administrative staff from Hickory Ridge High School, and other family members that would like to come down to the front. Beringer. Pardon me. I'm so sorry. Should I start over? Samantha is a senior at Hickory Ridge High School. She serves as captain of both the Honor Guard and Winter Guard teams and has been involved in the pageantry arts since 7th grade. Mr. Chris White, her band director, encouraged Samantha to submit a video audition to the U.S. Army in early 2013 due to her high level of commitment and performance throughout her marching band career at Hickory Ridge. In November, Samantha was notified that she was one of 125 students in the United States to earn the opportunity to be selected as a member of the prestigious U.S. Army All-American Marching Band. I happened to be in the audience the day the announcement was made at Hickory Ridge High School, and I remember the Army captain saying that for every one spot in the marching band, there were over 1,500 applications. As a recipient of this acclaimed award, Samantha earned an all-expenses-paid trip to San Antonio, Texas, to perform in the Alamo Dome as a member of the U.S. Army All-American Marching Band during the U.S. Army All-American Bowl, which is considered the nation's premier high school All-American game. The performance was in front of over 50,000. She also received a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to rehearse and perform alongside the finest high school marching band musicians in the nation. Please join me in recognizing and honoring Samantha Barringer for this elite accomplishment. Congratulations. Congratulations. You can. Next, we will recognize two students that were selected to be members of the Bands of America National Concert Band. I'd like to invite Gabe Wilson, sophomore STEM student at Central Cabarrus High School, his family, any administrative staff from Central Cabarrus, and Mr. Stephen Petrucci to come down. I'd also like to invite Megan Cole, junior at Hickory Ridge High School, her family, and others that would like to come down for her recognition. Both of these students are extremely accomplished in the area of music. Gabe is a leader within the Central Cabarrus Marching Band, serving as tenor brass section leader. In addition, he has been selected as a member of All-County Band and All-District Band for the past 2 years. Megan serves as the woodwind captain for the Hickory Ridge Marching Band and clarinet leader for the wind ensemble. She, too, has been a repeat member of All-County and All-District Band and the Charlotte Youth Wind Ensemble. Having achieved this level of excellence, both students were recommended by their band directors to submit an audio audition for the opportunity to be evaluated by a panel of experts in the area of music and to be considered for membership in the Honor Band of America. After several months of waiting, both were notified recently of their selection into the elite family of 100 outstanding high school musicians from all across the nation. Both Gabe and Megan will be traveling to Indianapolis in March to be a part of the Music for All Honor Band of America, which is part of the Music for All National Festival. We wish you the best as you travel and represent Cabarrus County on a national level. Please join me in celebrating Gabe and Megan for their musical accomplishment.
Wow, that is pretty great stuff there. What fantastic! Congratulations again to those students and those high awards. We will now move on to 4.4, North Carolina Schools Public Relations Association Blue Ribbon Awards, and we will ask Dr. Shepard to come to the podium.
I'd like to invite our board chair, Mr. Blake Kiger, Ronnie Boone, Mike Martin, and his family to come forward at this time. Let's wait till we get the plaques out. All right. Mr. Chairman and board members, I'm pleased to share with you that our Public Relations Department has won several awards for excellence in communications from the North Carolina School Public Relations Association, an organization dedicated to building support for public education through well-planned and responsible public relations. Ronnie and Mike received Blue Ribbon Awards in the following categories: Internet Website Design for our new website, which we rolled out in July, Annual Report of 2011-2012. This is the second consecutive year that we've won in this category, and we're going for a three-peat next year, right? Okay. And our marketing campaign for the Clear Choice branding campaign, which includes billboard advertising, as well as our digital magazine, the CCS Lookbook. And photography for Mike's creative eye in capturing the Concord High School wet down ceremony this past fall. They brought home awards in every category they entered. Ronnie and Mike traveled to Greensboro last month to collect their awards and celebrate with other winners from across the state at a ceremony in their honor. We are so proud of them and congratulate you on a job well done.
Okay, thank you. Well, But that's the fun part of what we get to do. We get to hear all of the great things that are going on in Cabarrus County schools, and Ronnie gets the good fortune of being able to tell everybody about it. She gets to toot our own horn, and we love it when she does that. So thank you very much. And Mike, what a great job you do with pictures and everything that you do. It's fantastic. Thank you very much. Board members, we're going to move on to Section 5. And I hope you've had a chance to review the minutes, and I need a motion to approve the minutes as you have been presented.
So moved.
I have a motion. Second. And a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes, and we will move along to board comments, report section and board comments. I've just got one very small brief thing to say on behalf of the Cabarrus County Board of Education and my fellow board members sitting here. I'd like to congratulate our board attorney, Sarah Stone, who recently made partner at Womble Carlisle. So in the world of attorneys, that is a big, big deal. So thank you for your hard work and congratulations. And I will pass the microphone to Dr. Shepard.
Thank you, and congratulations, Sarah. Very proud for you. I'd like to begin tonight with just a reminder to our parents that this Friday, February the 14th, is an early dismissal day for all of our students to allow our teachers time for professional development. And Monday, February 17th, is the President's Day holiday, so there will be no school for students on Monday. For high school parents, second quarter or first semester report cards will be distributed on Thursday, February the 13th. We appreciate everyone's patience as we've worked through the Power School and Pearson transitions and resolved issues with their software. The Cabarrus County Schools annual report for 2012-2013 is now available online. So please visit our district website and navigate the quick links section to access the report. And finally, I'm very excited to announce that Winter Guard International Sport of the Arts will host its 2014 Charlotte Regional Competition at the Cabarrus Arena and Event Center on March 15th. All Cabarrus County High School Winter Guards will compete in the event along with other guards from across the Atlantic coast. Winter Guard is an indoor pageantry activity that involves an array of equipment, movement, and skill using flags, rifles, sabers, and other props to bring music and themes to life while displaying technique, creativity, and expression. We will have more information about the WGI regional event posted to our district website in the coming weeks. If you've not experienced this performing art, I encourage you to attend and hear the music, see the color, and feel the art. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shepard. We will now move. Yes, Carolyn, go right ahead.
Thank you. I was just wanting to bring this up. What this is an event. Representative Larry Pittman is going to have a town hall listening event on Common Core. This is going to be February the 13th in the auditorium at J. Robinson High School on Pittsco Road, and basically this is just an event to hear comments. He is actually on the subcommittee in Raleigh about Common Core, and basically what he's going to be doing is just taking comments from both sides, whether somebody's for or against, and basically taking those comments back to Raleigh since he does serve on that subcommittee. And this is going to be from 6:15 to 7:45 at J. Robinson. Again, this is on February the 13th, and again, it's just a town hall listening event. And I just wanted to announce that.
Thank you very much. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, his subcommittee has a meeting sometime here in the near future. So that's why he wanted to come get public comment. So we will move on to Section 7, our guest speaker section of the agenda. And guest speakers may be scheduled on the agenda of the board's business meeting by calling Ms. Eileen Monroe, our board clerk, at 704-262-6238 by 12 noon on the Friday prior to the meeting. Individuals addressing the board may speak for 3 minutes, and persons representing a group may speak for 5 minutes. The Board of Education would like to thank our guests for their interest in addressing the board and also for their cooperation in presenting information within the time frame allotted. And tonight we do have 2 speakers that have signed up to speak. The first one is Cheryl Garcia, who wishes to speak on Read to Achieve. So we will welcome Ms. Garcia to the podium. And are you speaking on behalf of a group or just an individual?
Individual, group, whichever one you want to give me.
Okay. Well, we
I've got it to 3.
Okay, we'll give you the 3 minutes then. You go right ahead.
Parents around Cabarrus County have received so much information in the last few weeks concerning the Read to Achieve law. In my daughter's Girl Scout troop of 10, 7 qualified for the portfolio, and 7 sets of parents heard 7 different definitions and explanations for the Read to Achieve law and requirement for promotion to 4th grade. We decided to do more research and reach out for help, only to find not one person, teacher, school, or county had the same recommendations, suggestions, or even understanding of the law. How are we as parents supposed to ensure our children are on the right path if our schools do not even know what that path is? We started to ask ourselves, what more could we do to prepare our children for the test? To add on to what is done in school, we reached out to their teachers to see what they are doing in class. Here are some of the things they are already doing. They are learning the 12 reading standards. However, only 4 have been taught so far. 4 standards in the first 18 weeks leaves 8 standards to be learned in the last 18 weeks. During a 90-minute reading instruction block, students are reading independently for 40 to 50 minutes. If a student reads for 40 minutes a day for the 180 days of school, they will have read 7,200 minutes or 120 hours. How many minutes do you spend reading a fun book a day? Depending on the unit or assignment, some students will be reading up to 4 books at one time. 2 books from the library, 1 for blogging or class assignments, and 1 for guided reading. How many books are you reading at one time? How many books have you read this year? Students are also doing practice EOG passages. Based on suggestions from teachers and administration, we printed out NC EOG passages, bought EOG practice books, and pushed more reading on them, all to build up stamina. Our children are not only reading during their assigned reading block, but in every other subject, 15 to 30 minutes of reading homework at night, and the extra practice EOGs we give them. After all of this, do we really think our children are going to pick up a book in their own spare time on their own? At last week's meeting, we were encouraged by the board's comments against such high-stakes standards and pressure on our 8 and 9-year-old children. We applauded your request to defer the RTA for at least 1 year. We have heard that the county has received permission to use alternative assessments instead of the portfolio and shorten the summer school. While this is a step in the right direction, we ask you not to consider this a win. We ask that you still push to defer, if not outright request to put a stop to it altogether. There are 63 full days left until EOG week, and the steps to passing 3rd grade are still changing. How fair is that to this year's 3rd graders to keep changing the rules? What do we need to do to help our children pass? What options do we have? Even shortened summer school is not an option many families will choose to guarantee promotion to 4th grade. 5.5 minute class time plus a 30-minute bus ride to school, a 30-minute back ride makes a 6.5 hour school day for summer school. This is a school day, regular school day, minus the encore classes and recess, and its only focus is reading. We ask that you continue to push to defer implementing the RTA until reasonable requirements, testing, and guidelines are firmly in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Garcia. And we have another speaker regarding Read to Achieve, and that it would be Jennifer Teague.
Good evening. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Jennifer Teague. I have a daughter in 1st grade, a son in 3rd grade, and a future kindergarten this fall at Harrisburg Elementary School. I attended last Monday's meeting to hear about the proposed resolutions on the table to hopefully offer some reprieve to our 3rd grade students. I have since read the approved alternate assessments from the state and have particular concerns about the TRC component of the Reading 3D. You will note my handy artwork here. Might be a little difficult to see, and I do have papers as well. This is my son's Reading 3D assessment, and you will see here in the green, little man running, he is all the way over and has surpassed the goal for the end of 3rd grade. However, When you come down to the instructional reading level, which is the written portion of the Reading 3D test, he is in the most support needed and back here in the red. What essentially has happened is in 5 months of instruction, he went from a level M down to a level J solely on the written portion of the Reading 3D exam. He is reading with fluency, reading with accuracy, retelling a story, and constructing meaning from a text. Overall showing efficiency, as it says here, he has met or surpassed grade level expectations. However, as the alternate assessment has been laid out to us, he must be at a level P before that is considered able to progress to fourth grade. Now, I will tell you the reading passage or the written passages, if a child scores a 3, which is the highest that you can answer one of the written questions, there are 2 for each reading level, and then perhaps doesn't do so well on that second question and maybe scores a 1, they are required to take the lowest score of those written questions. That is why you are seeing such a discrepancy here on his testing scores. Now, in speaking with teachers and administration in our district, there is a rather large number of children having difficulty with this written component of Reading 3D, that if you look at separately, which you can do, there is a table that allows you to compute a composite score of these key reading proficiency levels. There would be a drastic decrease in the number of students facing summer school or retention. Now that my son has digressed back here and is at a level J, he is able to receive something called progress monitoring. So his teacher is now every 10 to 20 days having to progress monitor my child. But I will note, it is all on the oral comprehension piece. They are not progress monitoring the written portion, which he has struggled with. Down here you can see he answered 5 of 5, 4 of 5, 5 of 5, 5 of 5 on the oral comp. And that is what they are going to progress monitor him, taking instructional time away from the teacher, time away from him, and really not an overall good resource of our funds and instructional time. I would ask that the board further review this component of Reading 3D assessment in order to get a more accurate view of the children needing additional assistance, thus making better use of our resource and instructional time. We are working diligently with our teachers to try to help come up with a solution, and where we see the written component absolutely serves a purpose, I think long run this can prove well for our children. It should not be factored in as to whether or not a child is reading proficient at a 3rd grade level. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much for your comments, Ms. Teague. And with that, we will move on to the approval of the consent agenda, Section 8. Do I have a these are items we discussed last week and put on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, 6 to 1 on the consent agenda. Okay, we will move forward to the action agenda, Section 9, and we will welcome Dr. Louder to the podium to discuss the budget amendment for the school resource officer, the grant.
Normally, I'm not here for a budget amendment. Ms. Klutz is at the finance conference, and so this is a grant that I submitted. So just wanted to make sure that you guys had, if you had questions, I would try to answer those. If you get real specific financially, I may have problems, but overall, I'll try to answer those for you.
Thank you, Dr. Louder. We will keep that in mind. I know that we do have some questions that we want to talk about, and we will start with Dr. Phillips.
Okay, thanks. I actually sent a couple of questions to Kelly because I knew she wasn't going to be here, and I'll just review what she told me. I asked her, this $130,000, was that just to cover the rest of this school year, or does it, and if so, then how much do we have to pay for next year? She said the $130,000 actually represents the full contribution, the contribution to cover a full school year. I guess the grant amount is for a full school year, so we have to match an according amount, but she does not expect that amount to be spent. However, this does mean that in the next budget, we will have to include $130,000. That was my main point. I just have a couple of comments, and it's not a question. You respond if you want. My concern about this is that obviously there are benefits to having school resource officers, and I'm just concerned that we're not weighing spending this $130,000 against spending $130,000 on other security-related issues that would be in the school 24/7, whereas the security officers, as I understand it, will only be there half-time during the school year. And then the second reason is that I don't like the idea of taking $130,000 out of the fund that was to pay for instructional staff and to use it for security officers. I just think that the need for security officers has been imposed upon us by outside forces in society, and I think it's wrong that we have to rob our instructional budget to cover that. I think that we are giving the county or the city new police officers, new sheriff's deputies, that they should be the ones paying for this extra $130,000.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Mr. Harrison, do you have any comments? No? Mr. Shue?
Well, I tend to agree with fairly much everything Mr. Phillips said, but the only real problem that I have with it, I wish Kelly was here, but I believe she made the statement that if we do not approve the $130,000 budget amendment that's being recommended, that we will lose the remainder of the grant for the resource officers. And so money is too hard to come by, and obviously it's going to cost the school system $130,000, and that's the portion that we have to match to what the grant is. The grant, I'm not sure exactly how much it was, but I believe it was $368,000 all total.
That's right. We put up 130, and the state gives us 368. Yeah.
So we would be losing $368,000 if we don't approve the 130 to get the resource officers, and so I just feel like that it is a good use of the money, although. I got emails and even a phone call or two from concerned citizens talking about, what will they have to do in elementary schools, walk around and twiddle their thumbs? Well, that might be true, but then you have to look at another point of view, and that is there has to be value in several areas. Number one, security, which is always of concern of Cabarrus County Schools, is security of our children. And number two, we live in a much faster paced society than we ever have before. And children today are doing things in elementary school, believe it or not, that they used to do in high school. And so the presence of having a police officer in the school sort of, in my opinion, sets the tone, and that they just need to learn from the beginning that there is such a thing as law and order in the schools. Not that we have a problem with that, but the presence of having a resource officer in the school, I think, outweighs the money that we're going to be giving up on that. How long was that grant for, Dr. Louder, do you know?
It's in the state budget now, recurring, so it's guaranteed for 2 years, and it's part of the budget. So someone from the state would have to come in and remove it. So usually that's recurring money that stays there, but like all things, it could be taken out.
Yeah, okay. Well, and that is not, that's very possible. It's, a lot of things are like that. But I think that we should move on forward with it, and that's just my opinion. And there's 6 of us, and whatever they want to do, but I think we should move forward with it.
Thank you, Mr. Shue. We'll move on. Mr. Shoemaker.
Well, I am going to come out in support of this, though I understand Dr. Phillips's concerns about the $130,000 being pulled out of instructional monies to support this. However, December a year ago, there was an unfortunate incident, and after that, this board got besieged with a number of emails about what are we going to do for the elementary children. This is, the state legislature addressed this by setting aside this money. Now, we're one of the very few districts that actually put in for a grant for this. Many districts did not even try to go for this grant. So, because we got awarded, and I think Dr. Louder, you said that we put out some more. We've submitted another grant for some additional monies that they may have available to
Right,
us.
another round of the same grant that's actually due on Thursday of this week. We submitted it a long time ago, so we'll find out by the end of the month if we'll get enough to put resource officer at every school.
And so this district is trying to, and Dr. Shepard and his team are trying to do the very best they can to stay out in front of this and to take the youngest of our schools and make sure that they're protected in the best way we can protect them. No one can protect anybody 100%. In fact, you know, just driving in on a bus, you're liable to find some type of accident, some type of fender bender that could put their lives at risk or endanger them. And so there's all types of danger out there. However, it does serve as a deterrent. We are putting our money where our mouth is. We just hate the fact that we have to take money from instructionals to support security. And I'm sorry that we're in a society that now we've had to come to this, that we can't have our schools the open platforms. If you go to some of our older schools, you'll find that they were built in an age when philosophically it was an open type of campus, and they're set up to be open and free-flowing. And now we're having to go in more and more to a more restricted type of campus to protect the children from people who don't have their best interest. So I'm going to support this, but I do understand others' reasons for not.
Thank you, Mr. Shoemaker. Ms. Carpenter.
This round, again, how many officers will this get us? Wasn't it
9?
9. And when we had the meeting over at Concord, this was what this is where this money basically come from. Mm-hmm. Because basically that meeting, they went back to the state and they come back and that was what they heard. People were saying, we want to get SROs into the schools, especially the elementary. So this is what came out of that meeting. Again, what was mentioned earlier, we had a lot of the parents, especially at some of our older schools, especially Royal Oaks, Mount Pleasant Elementary, those schools, the design, they were very concerned with this. So this is where we can maybe get those officers there, especially the campuses where we have multiple buildings that are more than one building. So this is something that we can look at and we can address those problems. And then this is one of the things our safety committee talked about. What will these elementary SROs do? And that's something that we did address, and we're going to see what can be, not just dare, what will their day look like? And so this is something that's going to be addressed. And our world has changed. We all know that. And, you know, the presence is very important. We know that our school system has changed. We realize that. And we have to adapt. Our school 5 years from now is not going to be like it is today. We know that. Those supplies are going to be different. But we have to adjust. And so this is one of the adjustments we have to do. And so I think this is something that we may not like it, but the children's safety, this is something we have to deal with. So.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Mr. Walter, you have comments?
Just a couple. How do we fund our current SROs?
I wish Kelly was here, but I'm pretty sure we pay for one level, which I think is high school, and the county and the city pay for middle school. It might be reversed, but I think we pay for one. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do fund some SROs.
Yes.
And this is a grant that helps us to bring 9 more officers into our schools. And we had that discussion, as Carolyn was mentioning, especially the schools that were not in the urban areas that had slower response times. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, I think the parents certainly feel that having an SRO on site is a proactive thing that we can do to protect, or at least add some sort of protection, additional protection for staff and students. So I'm supportive of it, and I'm glad that Dr. Phillips brought up that point, because that is a concern, but it's still something I think we need to move forward with.
Thank you, Mr. Walter. I am somewhat conflicted with this because you don't want to, if you have the chance to embrace something that you think is going to make a school more secure, you certainly wouldn't want to turn your back on it. But I'm convinced that if somebody had been asleep for the last 30 years and then came back and saw that we have police officers in our high schools and middle schools, they'd be stunned and think, boy, you have just totally lost control of what you're doing over there. And it from the outside looking in, if you weren't involved day to day, it doesn't make any sense. But if you talk to the school resource officers and you talk to the principals, they're invaluable with the information that they can get, with the relationships that they can build with students, with the relationships that they can build with at-risk students over time. And it serves an incredible purpose. But where I get a little bit conflicted, and this maybe I'm living in Pollyannaville, but at the elementary school, it just seems like it would be so much better to not have to have a police officer at the elementary school. Once they move on to middle school, they're bigger kids, they're different, their needs change, they're changing classes, they're in the hallways by themselves. It's just a different it's a different thing. So I guess philosophically speaking, I hate to take $130,000 of what we could be doing something else in instructional, like Dr. Phillips mentioned, and putting it to the SRO program. It is tough to it's tough to bypass if you have a grant and that safety program that we went to at Concord High School that had, about everybody involved with schools. We talked about how invaluable the resource officers are. So it's a good program, but I don't know. I guess just based on philosophical reasons, as Dr. Phillips mentioned, I'm going to vote no. But it doesn't mean that I don't care about security and safety. I just think, as a principal, that's an expense that we should not have them be covered with our instructional money. So with that being said, board members, we are going to move forward. And do I have a motion to approve the budget amendment number 2 to the local fund as approved as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye.
No.
Okay, Ms. Monroe, that's 4-3. And that motion passes. Okay, we will now move on to 9 point. Thank you, Dr. Louder. You did. That was 4-3. Thank you, Dr. Louder. We appreciate you standing in for Kelly. And we will welcome Dr. Jason Van Hukelum to the podium, and we will discuss Read to Achieve. We actually have 2 different pieces to talk about, so this will be the first one.
Good evening, board members. Bringing you tonight the revised resolution that we discussed last week, and then the second item that we have is based on our feedback from the board that we received earlier last week. You now have to vote on our assessment of Discovery Education in place of the portfolio. So you can see our changes there in red. We tried to stick with the theme of increased local autonomy in the implementation of statewide mandates, and so that is the theme of our resolution. I'll just go ahead and read the red highlighted changes. So one of the things we put in there was to acknowledge the fact that we were approved. That came after our previous meeting. So our board noted with relief and gratitude the decision made by the state board at its meeting on February 6 to approve the use of an alternative third grade reading assessment as long as the requests for those assessments are approved by the local board and signed by the local board chair. If you skip down to number 2 under summer camp, to address the mandatory nature of summer school, we added letter B. So the superintendent will be provided the flexibility to determine the mandatory nature of summer camp within Cabarrus County Schools. We believe that statement allows us to make those decisions at the local level so that we don't have to have a mandatory summer camp. And then the last sentence there, we appreciate the core components of this legislation as well as the intent, but ask for the autonomy in the implementation of the portfolio and the summer camp elements. This time I'll take any questions you have on the resolution.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Van Hukelum, and we will start with Mr. Walter.
Explain again, the superintendent will be provided the flexibility to determine a mandatory nature of the summer camp. So I'm not quite sure I quite understand what we're trying to say.
So the law says that summer camp is mandatory. We're asking that we get to decide who goes to summer camp and whether we allow flexibility with that decision. So right now, the superintendent does not have the right to exempt a child from summer camp. If they don't meet that deadline or that benchmark on the EOG, and then they don't meet the same benchmark on the Discovery Ed, Dr. Shepard does not have the right to exempt a family from summer camp, and we're asking that he has the right to do that.
So it's the same as retention. So if they don't pass, don't make proficiency on the EOG, and we exempt them from summer camp, what happens? They move on to fourth grade, or they don't?
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, that helps me better understand.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Walter. Ms. Carpenter?
One of the things I'm worried about with this whole thing, and that's why I'm saying, is this going to allow? I don't want a child to be labeled. To me, this is sticking a label on a child, and I do not. I repeat, I do not.
I don't either.
Want a label on a child. I have talked to numerous teachers. I've talked to them in Walmart. I've talked to them anywhere I can. And to me, this is putting one more, this is the straw that's breaking the camel's back for these teachers. It's piling something else on the teachers. It's adding extra work for the teachers. And it's doing that. It's labeling children. Unfortunately, I couldn't be here last meeting. I wish I could. I was very ill and couldn't be. And I know that Dr. Phillips had said that he was ready for us to get in line and tell them they could sue us. Just, and I'm with him on that. Let them do it. I am saying, it's kind of like the state's dangling a carrot out there for us and saying, we'll give you a little bit of money. It's not going to cover it all, but you're going to do it. I'm sure this whole board knows what I think of, reading is the foundation for everything. We've got to have our children to be able to read, but it's like they're just trying to dangle something out. We're going to give you a little bit of something. It's not enough to do what we need to do, but what I'm saying is I think we've got a basic thing that's in place. We've been working on it. I want to have the option to do what we can do to work with our children, but I don't want them to force us to do that. Does this allow us to do that? That's it in a nutshell.
Right.
And not to label a child. Is this going to make us have to still label these children? That's my question.
So I'll answer the first one first and then the second one.
Okay.
This will allow the superintendent to create local rules and regulations for summer camp. It would allow us to have the maximum flexibility for families that may have other reasons why they should not participate in summer camp and therefore not receive the label. Okay, so for example, we talked about our students with disabilities. There will be several situations where we'll meet with families and it'll be the right decision for that child not to attend summer camp because of a disability. And we want to have the flexibility to make that decision. If they were to approve this resolution and say, yes, you get everything you asked for, then those children would not be labeled. Okay, but I want to remind the board that this is a resolution, right? This is still a state law, and if they say thanks but no thanks to this resolution, then we have to follow the state law. And so retention label is a part of the state law. That is in General Assembly statute. It's not a DPI interpretation. That is actually part of the law. And to your point, I don't believe in labeling children either. And I think that's something that is unfortunate with this law. Again, we said last week the intent of the law is something we all agree with, right? But there's a lot of specifics within the law and within the interpretation of the law that have caused a lot of anxiety within our community and our teachers and those of us in district leadership. So I think this resolution addresses our primary concerns and says, hey, let us implement the law, the intent of the law, with the maximum flexibility, and then we would not have to label children. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Mr. Shoemaker.
Well, as I said last week, I really do not like surprises. As a parent, I would be horrified by being surprised, and a lot of people were surprised. You know, when we deal with employees, when we deal with life, we want to make sure people have a little bit of notice to make sure that they adjust to what's coming down. There's a huge learning curve going on here, and we've been introduced to some standards, and our third graders have been asked to rise to the occasion on a very short amount of notice to a little bit different rubric than what they're used to. And we're asking them to somehow overcome this learning curve in this year and learn, especially this written part of the test. And I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to wait for the alternative when we talk about those. I don't know why we can't put in here we would like, since the state's going to do what the state's going to do, and they're going to either honor our resolution or honor parts of our resolution or honor none of our resolution. I would like to defer this for a year. I've said that before, and the reason I say that is our second graders are now being taught with the methodology, and so they'll come into third grade having a little bit more training and a little bit more knowledge of how to deal with the 3D reading, with the portfolio exam, and doing the things that show that they are on a third grade level. However, our third graders didn't have that opportunity. They were just thrown to the wolves, and we got some pretty horrible results. Now, I do understand that there's been some dialogue, and when we get into the next piece, I'd like Dr. Shepard to kind of tell us some of the things that y'all have been doing as well as you, or maybe you do that. But that's my position on it. I think we should have all the flexibility. And I think these things that we've asked for in this, we still need to retain. But I believe in the interest of the third graders that got thrown into this, I don't think that we've really thought about, and I believe this is one of those unintended consequences of the legislation. I think the legislation has a good sound philosophy to it. However, I think it tried to do too much too quickly instead of letting this phase in and giving a year of learning in it. So that's where I stand on it. I'd like to see something added to defer this for a year.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shoemaker. Mr. Shue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a lot of merit to what Ms. Carpenter said and what Mr. Shoemaker said. However, just like you said, Jason, the law is implemented. I mean, it's in effect now as we speak. And about the best that we can do is ask for waiver of the way it is, the way it's written, that will be autonomy and flexibility for our district. And it's weighed heavy on me as well because obviously who wants their child labeled? I talked to a lady just a couple of days ago. We were out at some restaurant and she was saying, hey, my kid's straight A. He's got, right down the line, but he's a little bit slack, in reading. And I mean, reading is very important. We all know that. It's the cornerstone of an education because if you don't have the reading skills early, then it's not that good for future learning. So, but to make a long story short, I don't want to drag this out, but I think that at this time, about the best we can do is ask for the waiver to be approved. And if they don't approve it, well, I mean, we're right where we are now because that's where we are now. And so if they don't approve it, but I'm hoping that they will give strong consideration to our request. And Dr. Shepard, I know that with him having the flexibility of saying who needs to go and who don't need to go, surely will have a big effect on families and parents that otherwise, based on the law the way it is now, would have to go to the 6 weeks. And this way we can cut it to 4 weeks, and hopefully the impact won't be as much as it was. And then another thing, too, I don't like the idea of unfunded mandates, and the state's renowned for doing that to us, and I don't like that. And this might be able to pull in line the funding that we will get, because it won't require as many students as what we initially thought. So that's my thoughts on it, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Shue. Mr. Harrison.
I'll ask this as politely as I can. Does Raleigh live in a separate parallel universe from the rest of the world? I know that's a rhetorical question, David. Don't worry about an answer for that. No, I wouldn't put you on that spot, sir. You're much too. Hopefully, you're too smart to take. It's just strange. As much as I appreciate the idea and the concepts of reforms and improvements in education, when it hits the ground running, I'll not use the word I want to say. This is ill-advised. This is just not doable. It's not fair. And if something happens in the ether or the theoretical decisions in Raleigh of passing laws or passing policies that then get filtered down to the local districts, it's just bizarre. It's just weird. And here we have to face these realities that I guess well-intentioned people in Raleigh put forward, but then somehow I guess have not thought out or haven't tested, at the local level to get a sense of what is actually going on. I would I favor the resolution in general. The comment about the superintendent having flexibility, I have absolute, unequivocal, complete confidence in the superintendent's decisions to make those, or confidence in all to make those decisions. But I would like some more criteria around that if we reach that point. I would like to know by what criteria the superintendent would make those decisions. And other than that, I don't believe we're asking formally for an extension or delay of a year, are we? We've mentioned this, but we're not necessarily asking for that change to be made in this resolution at this point.
Well, it's not in the current resolution. You're welcome to make a motion or do, this board can act or change or do whatever if you've got a motion to make or second or whatever,
but now's the moment to do it, apparently.
Well, you can do it now, or you can wait till Dr. Phillips comments, or that's up to you guys.
I always defer to the wisdom of Dr. Phillips, and after he speaks, I will be delighted to make such a motion if that still seems appropriate. But again, thank you for the work on this resolution, and we're to the public, to the parents, we're trying to get something done. We're trying to make some difference in how your child is moved through the system and getting the education and the training they need to be successful. They have to be successful. That's the long-term goal. Please bear with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison, and we'll move on to Dr. Phillips.
Okay, thanks. So overall, Jason, I like the changes that you made or are proposing to make in this, with one exception, and that's the final sentence. We appreciate the core components of this legislation as well as the intent. Well, I personally don't appreciate the core components of this legislation. I think that it reflects a national mania that we have with standardized testing, and I especially resent the pass or punish mandate that goes with this particular one. And so I would agree with saying we appreciate the intent of this legislation, which is, of course, who would argue that people shouldn't be able to read but at third grade, but I don't like the way it's been implemented, and so I couldn't vote for saying that we appreciate the core components. So with that, if somebody wants to make a motion to do a changes, that's fine, but that's my only comment.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Phillips. I don't really have anything to add. I don't think there's any question that we all want fourth graders to read. We want our teachers to have the chance and the opportunity to teach them well and spend the time to do what they have invested their lifetime in doing, which is teaching, and to some sort of arbitrary way get in the way of that, it seems a little backwards. I was a little disturbed is probably not the right word, but tonight when Ms. Teague had a chart up and you see all this green and then way over to the left, and then when the instruction is not to the piece that's not rating high, something's just out of whack there. And I'm convinced that we've got to figure out, well, not we probably could do it if we went to Raleigh, but the people that are in Raleigh there now got to figure out at least a better way to map the progress or chart the progress, whatever it is we're trying to achieve at this level, and which, of course, benefits us all. The more these fourth graders read and the better students they are, it does benefit us all. But how we're doing this and how we're getting there it seems a little bit off. Before we entertain any motions or discuss what we're going to do with the resolution, I do have a question, and this is just me from a purely practical standpoint. If we add language to the resolution to either we ask for a deferment, but hey, if you don't give it to us, we'll take this over here, are we either muddying the water or are we giving ourselves less likelihood to actually get something meaningful? Because I don't think anybody sitting here wants to deal with the current legislation as it stands. And if we muddy the what we're asking for, are we going to kind of back ourselves into a corner?
So we'll certainly do whatever the board wants to do, obviously. I would say that you would be muddying the waters a little bit. This gives you the maximum flexibility of the board to implement the legislation as you see fit for students regarding summer camp and retention labels. We knew well before raising standards with Common Core that 20% of the students in our county struggle with reading, right? And we know from research that summer intervention is a great strategy for kids that need more attention with reading. So my thinking is that by giving Dr. Shepard that ultimate flexibility, and then we can establish criteria later, what does that look like, what does that mean, who gets exempted, who doesn't, we would still be able to offer one of the components of the legislation, which is summer intervention, for kids that desperately need summer intervention. And so that's why we wanted the resolution to be fairly generic. We don't want when someone's reviewing this resolution to pigeonhole us and say, well, now you're not going to do anything, so no longer you don't have the funding either to do summer school, which is something we've wanted to do for a very, very long time. It's right for kids. It's good for our community. So the theme of the resolution is local autonomy, and I would encourage you guys to maintain that theme and not pigeonhole, paint yourselves into a box with specific language of what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. I'll let that be the next step in the process. That would be my recommendation.
Okay. I guess the follow-up to that is if we got the autonomy, if Dr. Shepard has that autonomy, and I'll echo what Mr. Harrison said, I have complete faith in the administrator, the C&I department, along with Dr. Shepard, to handle taking care of that. What I would be concerned with is the parents and the students as they're progressing through, well, how do they know when that flexibility is going to show up and when they're going to be told, sure, well, hey, the superintendent has decided we're going to do X. Is that after the test is over and they've stressed out about it for 6 months, or is it if we see a path what we're going and we know we're on the right path or wrong path? I mean, how do you envision that playing out?
We would have to decide on those criteria. Who needs summer school desperately? Taking the budget that we've been given, right, working within those parameters. Remember, right now we're looking at 45% of students, right? Based on previous EOGs, with the lower standard, we were always 20 to 25% of students. So immediately, if we reverted back to a similar standard there, we could say the bottom 20% go to summer school. We could also, one of the criterion could be just completely optional. It could be a completely optional summer camp, and parents could go or not go, but it would be available. Many of our families would say, yeah, I'd like my kid to go to summer camp. It could be, and potentially they don't have to attend the whole thing. There's a lot of different routes that we could go to make that amenable to our community without saying we're not going to do any summer intervention. But that's what we put together a team. We work with our principals, work with our community, create that criterion, and have that.
Okay, so as it board members, as we're listening, we could pass the resolution as it's stated, and we may get it and we may not get it. I mean, I guess whatever, I'm getting ready to state the obvious. So if we can make whatever changes that we want to make to it, and again, we may get it and we may not get it. And how, boy, I hate to put you on the spot, but on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being snowball's chance and you know where, and 10 being metaphysical certitude, where do we lie in actually getting the waiver as it's written currently in front of you?
I think I'm rather optimistic that you're going to get some response, some attention to this. I do believe this will come before the General Assembly in their short session, which is May, and that's a little late to alter our plans. But I think there are enough people doing exactly what you're doing and what our community is doing, and I think you have the attention of the General Assembly. And as I was saying last week, I don't think we need to waste this moment. I think we need to move forward swiftly and not only act on what we're doing, what they're asking us to implement now, but legislation that will be coming down the pike this summer that I think could be harmful as well. So I do believe it's worth the effort. I would say that if your feelings are to put the 1 year deferment, then I would say that up front. Our first choice is to defer this for 1 year. Now, I want my cake and eat it too. I don't want to defer the money that they're giving us to implement summer school. So I worry for that. If we would lose the $300,000 that they're giving us to do this experience for our kids who want it and who need it. But you could say first, defer it. But if you choose not to defer it, then here are the conditions that we would ask for.
Okay. I guess that's where I was going with you. You're sort of setting it up a little differently at that point in time, and I guess that's a risk we would take, and whether it's a calculated risk that we want to take or not, we'll decide. So, okay, board members,
Can I say?
You certainly can. Do you have a motion, or do you?
No, not at this moment. Dr. Shepard's comments sparked, Dr. Van Hukelem's comments have sparked, your comments have sparked some thinking. We could still put in the deferment, could we not, but still ask for the money. Part of our issue has been unfunded mandates. Well, our third graders, we know, need the opportunity to attend a summer camp if Dr. Shepard and y'all find a flexible way for those who want to attend, so that we don't lose that opportunity, that money. But still, I believe that the deferment and the retention label is the real piece that is in Ms. Carpenter's craw. It's the surprise and the fact that the children weren't ready to even undertake this, and so we're jumping on the backs of them. We're putting a huge burden on their backs. We're taking the joy out of school, and we're making it a burden. And I think 1 more year doesn't hurt that. We want to honor the intent of the legislation, which is to have every child prepared for third grade, and we're not just passing them through. I think if we don't ask for it, it's kind of like some of the other things. If you don't ask for it, you can never get it. But at least if you ask for it and they turn you down, then you did the best choice you could. At the same time, we want to appear to be commonsensical, and that we're providing a common sense avenue with this resolution, so that the legislature doesn't feel like we're trying to insult them. And I'm not trying to insult anybody. They poured. I'm sure they spent untold hours arguing about this thing to get it to where it was, and so I honor that. But I feel like, in our wisdom, we have to find a way to craft this so that we do have an out, well, not an out, that we do have this deferment option, that they will think about it, and maybe they'll do it for the whole state, not just for us, but because we asked for it, they start thinking, this might be good. We'll go ahead and give the districts the money to let them have their summer camps and do this intervention, but next year is when we'll actually begin the Read to Achieve process. That's kind of where I'd like to see it go.
And one of the things to keep in mind, and that's where the deferment is really good, because when I talked about the teachers being so overloaded, you just dump this Common Core on them, and that blew them out of the water to begin with, and now you're dumping this on them, and that's, like I say, you've done all this, and that way this would give them a break with this, and that's what I'm saying. It's been piled and piled and piled, and like I say, this was just one other thing where if you get the deferment but still do this with the school, or the ask for the money to let them have the schooling but defer it a year, that gives them a little break. I'm not telling you anything new. You know that. You're shaking your head. You know this. But like I say, this was just something else added to that pile, the extra paperwork, the other things that they had to do. And I know where you're coming from with this, to ask for that, but the deferment for at least 1 year, I think we ought to ask for it.
Okay, before we entertain any motions on deferment, the first thing I'd like to clear up is if somebody wants to give me a motion to pull out the portion where it says the core components of this legislation, so that we rewrite that to say we appreciate the intent of the legislation, comma, but ask for autonomy in the implementation of the portfolio and summer camp elements.
I so move.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion about pulling that out? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so Ms. Monroe, we will pull that sentence or that part of the phraseology out of the whatever resolution we pass. Will not have that. So now, does anybody want to offer a motion on either the deferment or the recommendation? As I'm hearing Dr. Van Hukelum, the recommendation of the administration is that we pass the resolution as it is stated in front of us, minus what we just corrected.
I am not really good on doing words. Do you have words written out, David? I have some words, but not to build on Dr. Shepard's.
No, sir, I do not.
Okay, well, following on Dr. Shepard's recommendation of putting it at the beginning, I would think that under the second paragraph, which is the Excellent Public Schools Act of 2012 requires blah, 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 Cabarrus County Schools has substantial concerns with this component. And I think at that point, or, let me see, maybe that's not the exact spot to do it, because that's talking about all of our concerns. Perhaps it is. Do you have a recommendation where I could put the deferment,
Well,
Jason?
can I have a point of clarification? Are you asking for a deferment of the entire Read to Achieve legislation, the whole kit and caboodle, or the summer camp component? Because if it's just summer camp component, I would put that under number 2.
It's actually the label.
The label, okay.
And then you have the summer camp autonomy piece. I'm trying to get the label off and to get some of the strictness out of this, because the big thing is that the parents are being forced to deal with what's happening to their children at the end. And I don't think that, you know, other than holding children back for normal reasons, which we've always done, I think we're trying to basically doctor this thing up, so we kind of did it the way we used to do it, and giving ourselves a little bit more autonomy in how to identify who needs to be held back. But at the same time, the legislation explicitly says that a child not meeting these standards will go into 4th grade with this retain label on them, and then has to still go through this program of remediation. Sometime they'll be deemed that they're unfit for 4th grade and have to be retained back to 3rd grade, which is even more disheartening. And so there's this double-edged sword at the end of the road in this legislation that our children weren't prepared for, our parents weren't prepared for, and they were surprised in. And that's kind of, I want to kind of eliminate the effect of that at this point. So I'm not trying to kill the legislation as much as give some flexibility to our parents so that they don't have to endure this yet. Let the 2nd graders come through, and we should be, and that comes into the next piece of that we're going to be discussing. So I'm trying to figure what the best.
So you could change letter
place for it.
B. Letter B right now says that the superintendent has flexibility to decide a process by which we decide who goes to summer camp. So you could simply say that summer camp is an optional component for families, and leave it at that. So we would you're still saying we want to do summer camp, we're going to have the money for summer camp, we're going to go through the process, and then parents who did not meet certain requirements according to testing would receive a letter that says, we have summer camp available for your child, they can come or they don't have to come. And then include in there the retention label and leave it completely optional up to families. The way you have it written now is we're going to develop an internal process by which we make those decisions, and that's up to you. But I would include the language about retention label.
Well, perhaps the deferment would be after the superintendent will be provided the flexibility to determine the mandatory nature of the summer camp within Cabarrus County and defer the retention label being placed on the 2013-14 third graders, rising fourth graders.
So I would make that a letter C then. I would say letter B, leave it alone. That gives us the autonomy to make those decisions at the local level and gives parents the flexibility of whether they go to summer camp or not. And letter C would be basically the deferment of a retention label on any child going through the process. You could add a letter C.
And board members, I'm actually trying to, I want to get you guys to weigh in on this.
Well, I guess if you're trying to find verbiage for a motion, I think I'd be more comfortable if we actually had one and a second and then had discussion about a specific motion. Unless I hear enough that we need to go back all the way through and let everybody make comments. It sounds like we're just going to make general comments.
Go ahead and make a motion, and then we'll wordsmith it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to make a motion that is not perfectly exact, but it gets us a starting point. And that motion is that we add a section, a number C or letter C to the summer school portion, talking about a one-year deferment, the 2013-14 children in third grade being deferred and not labeled with the retain label in 2014-15.
Okay, I have a motion to add C. Well, you heard, I don't think I need to restate it, but
now we can talk about words.
Well, we need a second before we just have discussion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, so now we can discuss how we want to proceed with potentially adding language for a one-year deferment. All right. Rob, does anybody have a comment or want to have
I think it really needs to go in the second paragraph of that whole letter, put it up front, and then go on to, if you don't, our intent is to have it deferred for another year, not eliminating the legislation, but to defer the implementation of the retention for a year. And then you can go on how else we can improve it, and that's the other thing about the different aspects, but I think it ought to be going up top.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walter. Any comments? Mr. Shue, did you have a comment about that?
Just clarification on Rob's comment. You talking about under the number 2, the summer reading camp, we've got A and B and Mr.
No, I'm talking at the beginning of this. We have second paragraph. We talk about the Excellent Public Schools Act of 2012. Well, we're talking about that act right there. That's where we really need to request that it, if possible, be deferred for a year.
Well, the only comments that I have, and on it, other than what I've already said, is you need to remember that this is a resolution asking them to give us the flexibility of the implementation, of how it's going to be implemented. I mean, it's already here. And as we've all said, they can or cannot give us what we're asking for. And I think it's like what Dr. Shepard said earlier, our number one, and Mr. Shoemaker's been real clear about it, that if we can get a deferment, but I don't know how you defer a state law. That's just my thinking. I mean, if it's a state law to come into effect on January the 1st, 2014, hey, we want you to leave Cabarrus County out. How can that be, that they do that? They might, like you said, Jason, they might say, well, you know what? We did, and what Ms. Carpenter said, we did implement Common Core this year. We did this, we did that, and now we asking them to do this. How many hoops do we have to jump through before we say no? That's too much. I mean, we'll go along a little ways, but we think that what they're asking is quite a bit. But since it's already implemented, it's a little late for them, to be wanting to get input from us, since we didn't have any input in the beginning of this legislation, which is what we should have had. And if they had had input from us in the beginning, then they might have had a more clear direction to come up with legislation that would better affect our children than what we have here. But my thoughts are that we just need to go on with it as it is and hope that we can get their consideration to give us these waivers, because I'm like Dr. Shepard. I don't want to see us muddy the water, or what you said, muddy the water, and they say, nope, we're going to leave it just like it is. But maybe we can get some type of a resolve, from what we're asking for. And but I agree that if we could put it off for a year, that would be great. But I don't see how you defer a law that's already implemented.
Thank you, Mr. Shue. Mr. Harrison?
Just quickly, is it safe to assume that 114 or 115 other districts around the state are also going through this process, and that the General Assembly in its spring, May short session will be deluged with this and many other local statements about the implementation of this law? I mean, whether we ask for a one-year deferment or not is still going to be in the mix of 100 and some other odd number of districts around the state also expressing angst about how the law is implemented to date. The point is to be at least one of those 115 other groups expressing reservations about how this is implemented. So, yes, sir.
Questions. I would not expect the state to defer implementation of this for 1 or 2 or 5 school districts. I would expect that if they were to get this request and they were to honor it, they would defer implementation for all 115 for another year. Coming into session in May, there's not a whole lot left to defer except for, at that point, the summer school option. So I think at that point they could delay the mandatory implementation of summer school and the consequences that would result as for not attending summer school.
Another quick question. Would charter schools have to have summer school? No.
Our board attorney is shaking her head. Yes.
I just wanted to ask that very quickly.
Let's get
So
the legal answers from the attorney.
Unless there's a specific carve-out somewhere in these statutes, charter schools typically do have to comply with all these types of programs, and I'm fairly certain that the third grade reading requirement is imposed on charter schools. I'd have to confirm it, but I'm 90% certain on that point, and could look into it and get you an answer.
She thinks that they would. Dr. Phillips has some comments.
Yeah, just first to that point about the charter schools, I did contact the principal at one of the charter schools in our county, and she said that, yes, they do have to meet the requirements that we are having to meet. I'm not sure if there's every rule, but they do have to meet. So did you want to say something more?
They do have a very similar provision regarding reading proficiency and student promotion for third graders in 115C-238.29F of the North Carolina General Statutes.
Some parents in the audience.
Anyway, we're not running charter schools, so let's not worry about them. Let's worry about what we're going to do. So I was leaning over and looking at Sarah's book here, which is the public school laws of North Carolina, and she is indicating that what we should do is when we request a one-year deferment, we should just say of section 115C as in Charlie dash 83.7, and that is elimination of social promotion, and so it goes through all of the criteria as to why a child is. So it's go ahead.
115C-83.7.
Okay. Would you like to, based on any of that, would you like to alter your motion?
I would like to restate it and clarify the language.
And that's fine. Before you do that, I want to go back. I'm with Rob. I think we got it where you put it. I think it's in the wrong spot. I would like to see it. If we do it, I'd like to see it where up at the top where it says Cabarrus County Schools has substantial concerns with this component of the. I'm on the wrong. Sorry. Yeah, that's it. With this component of the implementation plan, and would ask for a one-year deferment, and then in lieu of a one-year deferment, we would ask for and then state what it is after that we're trying to get the flexibility for. I'm a little concerned too about asking for the deferment. Not that I don't want it, but again, I'm thinking maybe we have more of a likelihood of getting something than starting off with, hey, can the whole thing, but if you won't do that, then okay, here, will you do this? And maybe that fear is unfounded, but if you would like to restate your motion, we'll go from there.
Well, first, let me clarify before I say it. My intent is to defer the retention label, which Dr. Phillips and Ms. Stone have said is something related to 115C-83.7. That's where the retention label is inside the social promotion.
The social promotion is in section 83.7. I think we need to be clear in what we're requesting as to whether or not we are requesting a waiver from the social promotion provisions and/or are we requesting a waiver for the mandatory summer camp. Because the way this is set up is step one, you do not socially promote. If a student's not eligible, they go to summer camp. If they don't successfully complete summer camp, you retain. And so it's a tiered progression system. If a student at the end of their third grade year, from my understanding of this, does not meet the standards, they go to summer camp. If by the end of summer camp they meet the standards, they're able to progress to third to fourth grade.
Right, and that's in 115C 83.7.
It's an 83.7, and then 83.8 is where they talk about the description of the summer camp provision. And so I think we should be clear about what it is we are.
Well, where is the fourth grade retention label? What number is that?
That goes into in 83.8. Students who do not demonstrate proficiency on these measures after completing a summer reading camp shall be retained under, refers us back to point 7, and provided with the instruction set forth in that area.
So I was asking for the deferment of the retention label, and then we have the flexibility in the remainder part of our, for Dr. Shepard and them to use other techniques, including summer camp, to help remediate children that haven't quite met the standards. But I want the label removed so no matter what, we don't go through this circle logic at this point and wait till the second graders. So the way I've read it, the way I've written it, is Cabarrus County would like the flexibility to defer section 115C-83.8, which is where the retention label is, i.e. the retention label for 1 year for the children in the third grade during the 2013-14 school year. This label would impact the children in second grade in the 2014-15. So we would enact the entire legislation, or I guess I don't need to put that in there if I just call out one set of years.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes, ma'am.
What if under section 2B, we add language that gives the superintendent flexibility to determine, 1, who has to go to summer camp, and 2, the social promotion provisions of this statute? Because that is how I read the statute, is that the retention is related to not successfully completing summer camp. We want the ability to say this student may not have to go to summer camp, and so the whole retention issue is not even on the table, whereas there will be some students who we do want to go to summer camp, and we want that flexibility to determine after their successful or unsuccessful completion of summer camp, they aren't promoted to the fourth grade.
But we never had that before. That's where the surprise is, and I'm trying to eliminate the surprise. We had a learning curve with our children, and I'm trying to eliminate the surprise. I want my cake, and I want to eat it too. So I want to roll in it too. But I want to make sure that we're specific enough in this that we don't have to provide a retention label on this group of third graders. Next year, we have time to prepare the second graders. We should be right now preparing the second graders for this. And we shouldn't have, well, we'll have our issues. I mean, we're going to have children that can't read. But this way, we at least, the parents going into it already know what the rules are, especially after the publicity that we've received from this. They will know what the rules are, and they won't be surprised. And that's kind of what I'm trying to eliminate. So that was where I was, Sarah. I was going to put it at the end of that sentence. You're saying at 2B, maybe we should put it on 2C, Cabarrus County would like the flexibility, since it's after the summer camp anyway, maybe that's where this would lie, instead of where Mr. Kiger and Mr. Walter have previously suggested it go up under the third paragraph.
Well, I guess I was looking at it that, well, maybe I'm not following you exactly, but if we put the deferment, I was trying to address what Dr. Shepard had mentioned, put it up front.
Well, I wasn't trying to defer the entire legislation. In fact, I want the $315,000 for the summer school if it's available to us. But at the same time, I don't want our children being labeled right now. I want that to be more of your flexibility to start the summer school process. But we're not. Dr. Shepard has some flexibility in whether it's a really mandatory program or voluntary, that kind of thing, so that we have kind of the best of both worlds. And they can shoot it down, but at the same time, if we don't ask for the best of both worlds, we'll never get it.
Okay, so if you want to, I was going to have him restate his wordsmith and restate the motion, since we have a motion and a second on the table. Do you want to have a proposal?
I think I have a proposal.
Okay.
You would like exemption from the mandatory retention provisions of 83.7 and 83.8 for the 2013-2014 school year.
That sounds right.
Okay.
That sounds right to me.
Yeah, that's,
Yes.
yeah, thank you. That sounds a lot more concise than where I was.
Okay.
And Sarah, that would be 2C. Are you thinking that's 2C or at the beginning?
It's almost a different bullet point.
I think it's number 3.
Right.
I think if number 2 is summer reading camp, I think we need to include a new number 3. Cabarrus County Schools also has concerns with the mandatory retention provisions of Read to Achieve as defined by state statute. Throw some general language in as to why we're concerned about children having labels placed on them. Therefore, we request exemption from the mandatory retention provisions.
And it sounds like that's your top priority, so maybe make that number 1 and push them all down. So number 1 is exemption from the mandatory nature. Number 2 is portfolio. Number 3 is summer camp. Does that work?
And maybe make number 1 number 3, since we already have the portfolio.
There you go. Yep. All right.
Okay. Was anybody writing all that? I was trying to.
Eileen's got it.
Okay.
I gave up.
I wasn't quite
It's like
there.
whatever she
I
said.
had it until that very last piece, but okay. Do we need to restate the motion? Do we need Rob to pull his second?
For clarity from Ms. Monroe,
Okay.
I'd recommend that.
Are you willing to do that?
I am.
Okay. So Rob has pulled his second. Mr. Shoemaker, would you like to offer a revised motion based on what Ms. Stone has just provided with us for? I understand we're going to add number 3.
All right. In number 1, we're going to put in the language Ms. Stone worked out, and that will be, what did you?
An exemption from the mandatory nature of the Read to Achieve legislation.
Okay. That will be number, yeah. So that will be number 1. Then the student reading portfolio will be moved to number 3, and the number 2 will stay as it is.
Okay. Does everybody understand what the motion is? Sarah, do you mind kind of getting that together and then maybe reading it for us, and then I need a second after she reads the motion. I think we're all eager to.
And while she's doing that, I'll make an additional comment. One thing about it, when they get this, they're going to pick and choose what they're going to give us anyway. And if you don't have it on there, they don't have nothing else to pick from. So it's better to have it on there than not have it on there.
Thank you, Mr. Shue, our wise 2-year chairman. Thank you. You have pointed that out. You're right. They're going to do what they want to do, but I think this sends a strong message of what we want to be able to do in Cabarrus County. Sarah, do you have? Can you clarify the motion?
I believe the motion on the table is that the proposed resolution regarding Read to Achieve be approved as presented, and it'll be revised by Dr. Van Hugelum to 1, request a exemption from the mandatory retention provisions of the law, 2, to include the summer camp language in the current version as provided, and 3, to refer to the portfolio, which has already been approved.
Okay, board members, everybody understand that?
Do you need a second now?
I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Just,
Dr.
you
Phillips?
said a 1-year exemption?
For the school year, yes.
Yep, so for this school year, yep, okay.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, Ms. Monroe, that's 7-0. Okay.